May is Older Americans Month, and we have lots to offer. Check out our calendar on QPL's website for upcoming older adult programs, including Zumba, creative aging workshops, book discussions, and more. Our mail-a-book service also offers homebound customers the convenience of having library materials delivered to their door free of charge. For more information, visit queenslib.org/MAB22. It's Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and we're excited to celebrate AAPI contributions to our nation's history and culture. Check out our book list for adults, young adults, and children. Join us for our virtual and in-person programs and more. Get access to free, unlimited internet at home with the Queen's Connected Mobile Hotspot Lending Program. Wi-Fi hotspots are available for you to borrow from several Queens Public Library locations. For eligibility requirements and participating library locations, visit queenslib.org/hotspot22. Our website calendar is the perfect tool to find activities for all ages, adults, teens, and children. You can find programs at your local library or online. Visit the QPL calendar at queenslibrary.org. Looking for things to do at Queens Public Library? We've compiled 125 of them. Pick up a booklet at your nearest library location or view the list online at queenslib.org/things to do. Share your journey with us on social media using the hashtag QPL125, and you will be automatically entered into a drawing for a free Queens Public Library tote bag.
Welcome to Queens Public Library's talk with Beppe Severnini, author of Italian Lessons, 50 Things We Know About Life Now, and actor and audiobook narrator Edoardo Ballerini. Stanley Tucci, the actor and host of Searching for Italy set of Italian Lessons, with unparalleled insight and brilliant wit, Severnini's book not only transports us to Italy, but deep into the Italian mind and spirit. The New York Times writes, Severnini is a keen observer of human nature. Hi. I'm Brian Alessandro. For those of you who don't know me, I have written for Interview Magazine, Newsday, Pink, Huffington Post, and I've recently adapted Edmund White's A Boy's Own Story into a graphic novel for Top Shelf Productions' Penguin Random House, which will be released this fall. Additionally, I co-edited Fever Spores, The Queer Reclamation of William S. Burroughs, an anthology of essays and interviews about William S. Burroughs, which will be published on June 14th. I'm also the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the literary journal, The New Engagement. My first novel, The Unmentionable Mon, was published in 2015 by Cairn Press, and my first feature film, Afghan Hound, was produced by Marriott Media in 2011, which is now streaming on Plex TV. Culture Connection, curated by Daniel Zaleski and now in its 9th year at Queens Public Library, is proud to present international artists from emerging talent to award-winning masters. These disciplines include music, theater, author talks, and film. Now expanding into a virtual format, Culture Connection is currently reaching a global audience. Beppe Severini, is an acclaimed columnist and editor for Italy's largest circulation daily newspaper. I'm going to butcher this and apologize. They're going to take my Italian-American card away from me immediately. Corriere della Sera. Eduardo, help me out.
Corriere della Sera.
Thank you. A longtime Italian correspondent for The Economist and a frequent contributor to the New York Times, he traveled all over the world. Among his books are the New York Times bestseller, La Bella Figura,
La bella figura.
a field guide to the Italian mind. Off the Rails, a train trip through life, and the international bestseller Ciao America. An Italian discovers the U.S. He lives with his family outside Milan. Eduardo Ballerini is an actor, narrator, and writer, and a director. He is best known on screen for his roles as the hot-headed chef in the cult classic Dinner Rush and as junkie Corky Corporale on The Sopranos. He will soon be returning to screens in the upcoming series Retreat for Hulu. Behind the mic, Eduardo was a two-time winner and three-time nominee of the Audio Publisher Association Best Male Narrator Award, and the voice of over 300 audiobooks from classics by Tolstoy, Stendhal, Walt Whitman, Jack London, Dostoevsky, and others, to modern bestsellers by Jess Walter, Amor Towles, Richard Powers, Andre Aciman, James Patterson, David Baldacci, and others. In 2019, Eduardo recorded the unabridged Hebrew Bible. This led to a profile in the New York Times, which called him understandably the voice of God. Hello, Beppe. Hello, Eduardo. Thank you both for speaking to us this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. And Beppe, you come to us right now from Italy, where it is like 5 after 11 p.m. So thank you so much for being a trooper.
Absolutely. No, it's delightful to be with you. I'm in Crema. Actually, it's been a thunderstorm today, so it's actually cooler. Was really warm, unusually warm for May. But Crema is my hometown. Actually, is very much in this book, in Italian lesson. There's quite a lot about Crema, and Crema is a quintessential Italian small town, and of course the camera is on me, but outside, just there is a Piazza del Duomo. It's delightful at night.
Beautiful. Eduardo, of course, you were the narrator of the audiobook version of Beppe's book. So before we begin our discussion, would you do us the privilege of reading the first few pages of the introduction?
Let's do that.
Okay.
There's an Italian way. Italy arouses in Americans a stunning mix of attraction and skepticism, envy and bafflement, moderate disapproval, and incredible allure. Is there an Italian way of dealing with life? Perhaps there is. And in Italy, we're familiar with it. But we're not often willing to talk about it, as if we fear we might reveal a national secret. That's my intention with this book. I want to share that secret with my English-speaking friends and show them the Italian way of doing things. It may not be the world's best way. Is there any such thing as the world's best way? But it's an interesting way, one that involves adjustment and consolation, tolerance and fantasy. Over the past several decades, it has produced neither impeccable governments nor a roaring economy, if we're honest, but it has displayed elasticity. And in complicated times, elasticity is a great thing. No Italian would be willing to admit what I'm about to say without appending a litany of complaints and grievances, but the fact does remain. We live very nicely in Italy. The pandemic has scarred the lives of us all in a violent and unpredictable fashion. In the United States, in Europe, and in every country around the world. It has furthermore coincided with other challenges. In the United States, it hit at the tail end of Donald Trump's term in office. And in Great Britain, it coincided with the implementation of Brexit. In many other countries, it marked isolated and impoverished society. Each country has reacted in its own fashion. In the Italian reaction, we can discern, one might say, interesting aspects, actually useful ones. Useful to a deeper understanding of who we are in what we used to call the Western world. Does that still exist? What's become of democracy, and how we face up to the great and sweeping changes in individuals and families, relations between parents and children, new gender relations. We Italians aren't new. We have a long history stretching out behind us. Those century and millennia of experience don't make us better than anyone else, but perhaps they have given us a few clues that are useful to meeting the challenge of coexistence, keys to that mystery. In this book, I will try to share them with you, my Italian-loving friends, and together we can try to see which doors they can open. At a time like this, are we happy to be Italians? I think we are. Because I love lists and I detest sermons, I've tried to sum up my convictions in 50 reasons why. 50 reasons for being Italian. I feel certain that not everyone will agree or find these reasons persuasive. I'm sure, in fact, that each of you will have reasons to cut or reasons to add. I'm fine with that. It means thinking together, both writer and readers, in Italy and around the world. That's any author's dream. These 50 reasons, or lessons if you prefer, are not a hasty simplification. They constitute the pillars that hold up our very existence, the foundation upon which we have built a significant past and can try to construct a better future. Those pillars have continued to weather storms, even withstanding the COVID-19 tornado, and they have saved us. They include a good national health system, well-tested family relations, functional social structures, the configuration of our cities, underlying generosity, empathy, imagination, and an absence of resignation. Italy has seen far too many things over its centuries and millennia of history to raise the white flag in the face of an epidemic. Even the care we lavish on our homes, which may sometimes seem obsessive, has become a welcome and salutary distraction. Our love of cooking, and why not, our love of wine, has proved to be a blessing. 2 good meals a day are a balm for both body and soul. In all the years of my life and my profession as a journalist, I've traveled the length and breadth of Italy. I've gazed at my country, listened to it, smelled, touched, and tasted it. All of Italy, not just the Lombardy where I was born and raised and still live. Every region, every major city, every minor capital of every province, the seas and the mountains, the hills and the lakes, all the islands from my beloved Sardinia to the mysterious Sicily. I've caught Italy doing things I didn't like. I've lost my temper with it frequently. Now and then I've quarreled with it openly. But Italy is my country. I'll never have another. I believe I know its shortcomings and finest qualities. And I'm convinced that our finest qualities far outweigh our shortcomings. Back to you, Brian.
That was lovely, Eduardo. Thank you. And Beppe, your book, is so charming and so smart and so humane. I have to say, I greatly enjoyed it, and thank you for writing it. You open your book with a quote from Joseph Heller's Catch-22, which I thought was very interesting. I'm going to read the quote. "You put so much stock in winning wars. The real trick lies in losing wars and knowing which wars can be lost. Italy has been losing wars for centuries, and just see how splendidly we've done nonetheless." Can you speak to this quote? What does it say about Italy and the Italian culture?
Well, first of all, thank you, Brian. Let me say, when I was listening to Eduardo's reading, and I was thinking, I don't write this well. And I know I'm not the first writer to say that when Eduardo's reading our work. I'm not that good. No, thank you. It was a tremendous effort, and I know and of course he knows Italy so well. Actually, may I say something? I found out about Eduardo through his audiobooks and stuff, but I knew about your father first, an accomplished poet in Italy, and so I put the two things, the family together. So again, Italy. I believe that the passion and precision that Eduardo puts in his reading is because he really knows what he's talking about. I'm sure he's fantastic when you read about Norwegian authors, and he's done, or British ones, but maybe with Italy, apart from the impeccable pronunciation of Italian names. By the way, Brian, Corriere della Sera. It's like the New York Times there, Corriere della Sera, straightforward.
Corriere della Sera.
It's maybe a little easy for him. Let me sort of cut straight to your question and give you a short answer. You remember a series that I really love? It was 10 years ago, American series called The Newsroom.
Yes.
Remember this amazing? I know you've all. This amazing opening scene. I think Northwestern University was definitely a university, and Will McAvoy, the main character, is sitting there, and a young students ask a question about America being the greatest country in the world.
He said it's not.
Oh, let's put it this way. I never heard anyone in Italy saying that we are the greatest country in the world. I don't think that's healthy. I think every country in the world, mine, yours, everyone, there is something we can learn. Most of the time, a lot we can learn collectively, and something, often a lot, we can teach. And I think that exactly my approach with books, and that why when I wrote about America or Britain or Italy, I never an advice for anybody who's thinking of writing about different cultures and countries: only write about people and nations and culture that you like.
Mhm.
If you like someone, it's like with your friends, you can get away with everything: criticism, being angry, disappointed, fair. If you don't like a nation, a country, a culture, people, it's come through, it shines through, and people realize, and they do not accept it.
Mm.
So I've been doing this with Britain, with America, and definitely with my own country, because I love my country. And I think there are things we can teach. And I sort of wrote a list, 50 of them, and work around them. So it's an optimistic book. I think we all need. We had a pandemic. We're now in Europe, a war, which is far. We're talking about, if I drive east from here in 8 hours, I'm in Ukraine. So we're talking, it's not that far.
Right, right.
And I think in a time like this, saying, okay, we're not the best country in the world, but there are something that can be useful to everyone. And that's what my book is about. Everyone in Queens, in Iowa, in Southern California, you name it, it can be useful. Italians, we are old, we are wise, we make mistakes, but we are an interesting bunch. Not
Can-
boring.
Yeah, no, not at all, and never that. Your aim with this book was to share the Italian way of life, of course, as you say, and perhaps its utility, so that people from Queens or San Diego or Maine or wherever we are in the country can use what's greatest about the culture. You've also written about Italy before in 2005, most notably in La Bella Figura, a field guide to the Italian mind. But this book, as you said earlier, was specifically the result of the COVID-19 pandemic, though it is not about the pandemic, rather the thing that engendered your self-examination, maybe?
Absolutely, yes. It's you can see La Bella Figura, the poster behind me. It's I mean, it was really tough to bring it back as hand luggage in my fly home, but I like it so much. And then that book, you can see Beppe Severo, La Bella Figura behind me. The book came out in the States in 2006, and it did become a New York Times bestseller. I think it happens only once to a great Italian writer called Luigi Barzini, and a super book called The Italians, exactly 40 years earlier in 1966. And to me, I mean, the joy and surprise and pride of writing a book that was a New York Times bestseller, I decided that the poster you see behind me, where is that? Out there. Can you see it? Yes, there it is. No way I was going to leave it in a hotel room. I brought it back. Now, this book, Italian Lesson, is like, let's see if I can have. Okay, you have both now in the picture. It's also, I'm behind the book. It covers me. I'm not that handsome, so it's good for everyone. You see two books instead of me. Italian Lessons is my update. So that was Italy in the beginning of the century. The book was out again 2006, and it was a different approach. It was me taking American friends around Italy and explaining Italy through places. I tell you, if you can read a street, a place, a salotto, a bedroom, a restaurant, a railway station, if you can read those places, maybe you can read Italy and the Italians. That was that book, La Bella Figura. These, I have the 50 reasons for being Italians, but I don't think I'm going to write a third book about Italy. Those are my two books, exactly 15 years apart.
And they're both great contributions. You sum up the Italian way of life in 50 reasons, which we're going to look at in a little while, for being Italian, because you love lists but hate sermons, as Eduardo just read in the introduction, which I thought was very, very thoughtful. Regarding the lockdowns, you argue that blind obedience is beneath Italians, but once you argue the finer points of mandates, you follow the rules. Can you speak a little bit to that and the experience of COVID and how the Italians?
Well, that applies to COVID. It applies to everything. Basically, in Italy, it's the word collectively doesn't really make much sense. I mean, once the lockdown was imposed, and I remember I wrote a column. I've been an contributing opinion writer for the New York Times between 2013 and 21. So when in March 2020, we in not Italy, not Lombardy, my hometown, Crema, where I am, Codogno, Lodi, we were the very first to lock down because it came, the first place COVID was discovered was Codogno, which is 10 miles from here. And then immediately Crema, and our hospital was overwhelmed and all that. When we experienced a lockdown, and I remember talking to my friends in New York, and I remember an interview with NPR, and I could feel, to be honest, I remember that NPR interview, that sort of incredulity. I mean, we don't believe. I mean, are you really going to lock down, you anarchic, undisciplined Italians? Come on, we don't believe it. And I thought, look, well, I also pointed out that we didn't have President Trump, which not having President Trump was an advantage at the time.
Yeah.
And we do have a National Health Service, which is not a socialist idea. It means you can have a health, you can go to hospital and not paying $1 or €1. That's good. That's good for your body and also for your psychological welfare.
Yeah, of course.
Epidemic, number one. And number two, I said, look, it is true that we are not a disciplined, predictable society, but we're not stupid. So once the Italians decide the accept the lockdown, lock yourself down, you and your family, makes sense, because actually there is an epidemic and people are dying, and you can hear ambulances. I remember outside that window all day, all night for a month. Okay, lockdown, fair enough. Waiting for vaccine, let's lock down. And so in Italy was not a national decision, was the combination, the sum of 60 million individual decision, which is very different. We not as a block, okay, we, the Italian nation, decide. No, every Italian, not every family, every single Italian concluded that actually made sense to lock down. And that's how Italians approach everything. You know, we want to decide whether a rule, any rule, a traffic light, a tax rule, a moral sort of sexual morals, whatever. We don't believe in general rules. We want to decide whether that particular piece of legislation or that rule applies to us in that specific moment. And
critical examination, right? Instead of just
sometimes it's too much. And driving, you know, to be a prime minister in Italy or run a country, a city or region, or the government in Italy is like to shepherd a instead of sheep, cats. Can you imagine? I mean, they all have their own agendas.
Sure, that's funny. It's a good insight. Thank you, Beppe. Eduardo, you and I are among the 20 million Americans who claim Italian ancestry. But as Beppe just said, your father was born in Milan and is a renowned Italian poet, writer, and translator, Luigi Ballerini, who moved to the United States in 1969, if I'm not mistaken.
Earlier. He came for university, but yeah.
Okay. Do some of Beppe's insights resonate with his experiences as far as you know them?
Yeah, my father is sort of an expatriate, so he grew up in Italy until he was 20, 25, and then he moved here to start his academic career in his late 20s, early 30s, and so he has lived back and forth. I, as a child, also went back and forth. I would spend my summers in Milano, and I would spend the school year here. And so I think what he has taught me and what I've learned on my own is, in fact, this ability to see these cultures both from an inside point of view and an outside point of view, which I think is a very interesting way to look at it. Everything that Beppe is saying is true. One of the things I've often felt about Italy is that because of its wealth of history and experience, and because the country has been through collective crises in the past, it has the ability to, as he said, come together in these moments in a way that perhaps Americans can't. If anything that was surprising in this pandemic is that the British, who famously pulled together in World War II, sort of abandoned that, and they were more like Americans.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Boris Johnson, right? But
right.
English Trump. Sorry.
But anyway, I think that history speaks volumes about how a culture grows.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're presented with a crisis, how you react is very much informed by your entire history.
Sure.
I know that we're going to be. Sorry to interrupt you, but I know that we're going to be reading another section, and in fact,
yes.
It's right on the heels of what Beppe was just talking about. So I don't know.
I was going to actually ask you if you wouldn't mind reading.
It even refers to the NPR interview that you just mentioned. So
this will be from chapter 4, titled
yes.
"Because We're Unpredictable, but We're Not Unreliable."
Right.
Okay.
It's a short chapter.
Okay.
2 adjectives are frequently applied to us Italians: sociable and undisciplined. In fact, during the COVID pandemic, we've shown the world that we know how to be disciplined, and we've willingly sacrificed the time we'd normally spend with others. Suddenly, we've stopped being afraid of things, places, words, and situations, and we've started fearing other people, bodies, contact, even breathing. It's a new instinct that has left us uncomfortable. We belong to a sensual culture, but we possess realism, resilience, and social networks. During the most stark and dramatic moments of our recent history, the world wars, the Civil War, domestic and international terrorism, we've discovered surprising resources. Years ago, during a book tour I did in the United States, someone asked me to sum up Italy in a brief description. I replied, "Neither heaven nor hell, a charming purgatory full of restless souls, each one convinced they're special." And in fact, those very same souls have shown that special individuals in extraordinary times save themselves by doing eminently normal things. For example, by respecting the rules. Many people, as I have written, doubted that we'd be able to do it. Prejudices die hard. There is a systematic suspicion concerning our intrinsic unreliability as Italians. In an interview with NPR at the start of Italy's first lockdown, I didn't hold back. Instead of doubting that we Italians will be able to get this done, I asked, "Why don't you Americans start getting organized? Among other things, in the United States, you don't have a national health service where everyone can be given proper care without questions first and without bills for service afterward. What about the cynics who rushed out all over the country to stroll through narrow lanes in multitudes in spite of the prohibitions? What about the Italians who gathered en masse with the excuse of politics, Rome, soccer, Milan, Naples, aerobatics, Turin, discotheques, Sardinia, and beaches, Liguria, Veneto, Lazio, Sicily? They too were Italians, of course, reckless Italians. Italians confused, first of all, by the sudden firmness of their government's position, and bewildered by the contradictory instructions issued, and then exhausted and anxious and eager for some distraction. These aren't justifications, but they are explanations, and they help us understand. The Pollyannas and the Chicken Littles in our midst have put the rest of us onto a head-spinning emotional roller coaster, and no doubt they'll do it again. Public health and vaccines, work, nuclear families, travel, schools and sports, incomes and reparations. We veer continually from optimism to pessimism, buffaloed by a photograph, a prediction, a statistic, or a text message. We needn't be ashamed, but we do need to climb down off the emotional seesaw now that the emergency is over. It's inevitable at times. Anyone can be anxious and unpredictable. But right now, we must prove that we know how to be calm and reliable. Were we afraid when the epidemic was spreading? What if we were? Sometimes fear is just a form of wisdom. Recklessness is almost always a mark of immaturity. If we managed not to lose our heads entirely, if we were able to demonstrate some self-confidence, if we faced up to the world's skepticism and refuted it with our actions, then we can now safely say, we are Italians. Never underestimate us. Back to you, Brian.
That was lovely, Eduardo and Beppe. Thank you. Beppe, tell us about the Italian ability to see people. You write about that a bit in your book.
Well, it's one of the reasons, the 50 reason, let's see if I find it. I think I know where it is like, it's it's because everywhere. Number 6, because the rest of the world looks at you, Italians see you. There is a difference between looking and seeing. And,
Sure.
and I tell you where this comes from a book tour, actually, Bella Figura. I was in Scotland, of all places, and Trent University, and a young woman stood up, and she said, instead of asking a question at the end of she stood up and she said, "I'm gonna marry an Italian." 2006, of course, we were a little loser in comments, so she was actually a really attractive young woman. And so my instinct as an Italian, of course, you're more careful there, we are less careful in Europe. And I said, especially in 2006, and I said, "Young lady, I see no problem there. You can pick basically 30 million people you can choose from, just inform the wives, just in case." And she ignored my sexist remark. She completely ignored me. And she told me, "Do you know why that? Because I'm from South Africa. I lived in France. I lived in Israel. I lived in Germany. I'm now living in the UK. And I tell you, everywhere they look at me, but at that time I was quiet. I didn't say anything. And everywhere in Italy, they see me, and I knew exactly what she meant. In Italy, even the relation between a policeman and you, when they stop you, you're driving a car, they stop you for a violation or to a check or something, is never like a policeman and a number plate, and it's like a piece of theater. You look in Italy, people, because they're tall, because they're small, because they're thin, because they look like your grandfather, because you think you met them before, because you love them, because you think they're sexy, because you fear they're boring. But strangely, we concentrate on other people because their tie is funny, because whatever. But you never look at numbers or ghosts. They're real people. And in Italy, it's kind of reassuring, I noticed, for lots of people, including all of my foreign friends, especially the British, which are not used to this, but even my American friends or my Northern European friends. It's refreshing, if I may use this word, reassuring. You come to Italy, and it's like from the morning when you go and have your cappuccino, which of course in Italy is illegal after 10 in the morning, just to make sure. Everybody, I'm saying this from Queen's Public Library, a cappuccino is illegal after 10 in the morning. Don't do this. After dinner is illegal and immoral. End of quote. From the moment you go out and have your cappuccino in the morning until it's a series of personal relations, some pleasant, some unpleasant. Actually, I would say most are pleasant, but it's always a sense of things happening. And that is why Italy, tourists all over the world, they love Italy. You think they come for old ruins, churches, and Raffaello and Botticelli? Yes, of course. But they come because you come into a play. And we are all actors. Okay, welcome, Edoardo O'Brien. Welcome to our gigantic play. Which role you want to play today?
It seems as though you're saying there's really no risk of apathy. There's no indifference. There's passion. There's care. And there's attention.
We are often angry, bored, almost never.
Almost never. I love that. Often angry, bored, almost never. That's great. Beppe, you sent us a slideshow of the 50 chapters, the 50 things that we know about life now that are encapsulated within your book. So we're going to take a look at them now. If we could maybe briefly just go through them. There we go. Let's see. Here we are. They're a little bit small, but how did you want to present it to us? Did you want to read each one?
I'd be very honored if I could do one each, me and Edoardo.
Oh. Sure. Go back and forth. Sure.
Then I will.
I mean, they're really short.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so 50 reasons for being Italians. You start.
Okay. 50 Reasons for Being Italian. I'm going to pull it up on my screen so I can actually see it well.
Oh, they're on the books.
Yeah, I know. I have it in the book. Yeah. I'm just getting to it. Sorry. You threw a surprise at me.
Sorry about that, everyone.
No, quite all right.
I told you, I'm Italian.
Here we go.
I'm
One,
predictable.
because when everyone expects us to lose our cool, we find our strength.
2, because we are vulnerable when we think we're tough, and vice versa.
3, because we can be serious about things, but we hate to admit it.
4, because we are unpredictable, but not unreliable.
5, because we make gallant gestures. Good behavior, we're still working on that.
6, because the rest of the world looks at you. Italians see you.
7, because we find unexpected heroes.
8, because we do learn one way or another.
9, because we've seen practically everything. The rest we imagine.
10, because in time we let our resentment go.
11, because we're self-critical as long as we don't become self-defeating.
12, because many speak, some listen, but everyone understands.
13, because every so often we do embarrassing things and we know it.
14, because when we speak a lot, we say very little, and the other way around.
15, because we may not all be poets, but we recognize poetry.
16, because many of us have been fortunate in life, and we know it.
17, because our children see the future, and now and then they explain it to us.
18, because we can have fun without getting filthy drunk.
19, because we care about la bella figura, but we also love una bella risata, a good laugh.
20, because Milan is political and sensual.
21, because Rome is a story unto itself.
22, because our north and south fight like an old married couple.
23, because Sardinia smells like patience.
24, perché il vino è un'educazione sentimentale e l'espresso è una tregua. Because wine is a sentimental education and espresso is a truce.
I love that.
25, because we instinctively know what's good and genuine.
26, because many criticize us, but nearly everyone copies us.
27, because we want to work from home, but we enjoy being together.
28, because we know the line that separates the courteous from the intrusive.
29, because small churches are better than grand defenders of the faith.
30, because we are too indulgent with crooks, but we can spot them instantly.
31, because we have a public school system, the ultimate social blender.
32, because we have nursery schools and we produce Maria Montessori.
Yes.
33, because we have the National Health Service and family doctors.
34, because our policemen don't glare at us, though sometimes they should.
35, because we know how to think with our hands and work with our thoughts.
36, because our countryside never looks bored.
37, because work's demanding, but we can't do without it.
38, because in every lab on Earth there is a computer, a green plant, and an Italian.
39, because we have old houses that need maintenance and tender loving care.
Number 40, because empty cities produce interesting sounds.
41, because we want home delivery and we love having shops downstairs.
42, because in the restaurants business, people weather the storm with a smile.
43, because in our parks we love strolling, relaxing, and quarreling.
44, because we've elevated complaining to an art form.
45, because we love to baffle those who judge us.
46, because we know that sometimes those who judge us are right.
47, because if nobody's the same, it's hard to feel different.
48, because occasionally we are speechless, but eventually we find the words.
49, because we are what others would love to be, but don't dare.
Number 50, perché sorridiamo nonostante tutto, because we smile in spite of everything. Grazie, Edoardo.
That was wonderful. Thank you both.
Partner,
That was
Stanley
really great.
Tucci, who wrote, would have been a much better partner for you than me. But
you did just fine, Beppe. I have to say, there's a real sense of play and sort of beautiful, mischievous humor about your voice in this book, the way it's written, which I greatly enjoyed and appreciated. It's incredibly serious and deep and thoughtful and ruminative, but also kind of playful, which is really refreshing and fun. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Italian imagination in terms of nationalism and the government and social progress?
wow.
That's all, just that.
Just that. I mean, in fact, there is quite a lot about Italian sort of politics, even with now Mario Draghi, the new prime minister. We talk about the vaccination campaign, which was very successful, by the way, but I didn't want to write too much a political book. I thought that politics change, and I try to stress those things that stay the same. It's more like the attitudes towards politics and social and things we have in common, an institution and the rule of law, than the actual. There are very few names in my book. In fact, I just realized that the 50 reasons, there is only one person that I mentioned by name, and it's Maria Montessori. No Garibaldi, no Cavour, no Roberto Baggio, Maria Montessori.
But there's something that you, I think it was the last one you read, because we smile in spite of everything, the last chapter, the last reason, the last thing. I think that speaks to resilience.
Yes, sometimes, of course, behind people smile, not only in Italy, there is sadness, there is worry, there are many other things, but still, trying to smile and put a brave sort of face to it, and it's important. In Italy, we're very good at it. Sometimes Italy can be very deceiving. I mean, once you come, when people come here, they come to Italy and they think that everybody's happy all the time. No, we're good actors, not as good as the British, but good.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Italian capacity for being self-critical without being self-defeating? I thought that was really striking.
Well, I notice that in Italy, especially now, people tend to be critical of their own country, their own institution, their own life, their own, even too much, to be honest. I mean, it's the border between self-critical and self-defeating is easy to cross without realizing, and Italians have often crossed that line. But I remember sort of traveling the world. There are countries where you don't see people, when they talk to foreigners, especially, criticizing their own country. Maybe they do it among themselves, but when they talk to foreigners, they tend to say, we are good at this, we are good at that. That happens everywhere. Italians are self-critical. If you come to Italy, if you do not criticize us enough, we are angry. Say, why are you coming here? So we expect you to come and criticize, and we say, not enough, be tougher.
Eduardo, when was the last time you were in Italy?
Last summer, and I'll be there again this July.
So you've been going every summer despite the pandemic. You've been able to manage.
We missed a year, but yes, we try to go every year. Yeah.
You still have family there?
Yes, my father and stepmother are there.
So. Your dad is still there. That's right.
Well, he's back and forth.
He's back and forth. That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to read us now a little bit of chapter 14, because we speak a lot, we say very little, and the other way around.
Yes, I'll introduce this by saying, Brian, you rightly noted that there's a great sense of play in this book, and I thought this chapter was very playful, so I thought this would be fun.
Great.
I went to China at the end of 2019. Before anyone was talking about COVID. Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong. I'd been invited as part of the 19th Week of the Italian Language in the World. In the universities that I visited, I tried to explain Italy through the following key words. Ah, ba, ver, bo, ma, o. All told, 19 letters. Ah indicates the joy of understanding, the satisfaction of seeing one's hunch confirmed. We Italians are notoriously fond of hunches, perhaps a little too fond, so much so that we frequently forget to delve deeper. Really, we ought to. That too can be a pleasure. Bah indicates distaste, irritation, and even disgust. Any political argument in Italy is bound to feature at least 2 bahs, complete with exclamation marks. In fact, Italian voters expect very little from their candidates, so they try to limit their feelings of disappointment. The British, in contrast, expect a great deal from their politicians. That's why the poor management of Brexit traumatized them so deeply. Beh? Translation. So now what? It's an annoyed demand for information, and it highlights 2 national traits, curiosity and impatience. Our national impatience is a foundation upon which the various parties build their election strategies. Promise something right away. What about the future? Well, that's posterity's problem. Bo is a very brisk way of saying, I couldn't say. Perhaps the most concise philosophical treatise currently in circulation. Translation. There, I told you so. It's not great form to be openly dismissive of other people's disappointments, but doing so can be so strangely satisfying at times. Indicates astonishment, disbelief. Matteo, I heard Donald Trump has become humble. Enrico, Ma is a sigh, an exhalation dense with concern. There's a proverb, chi dice ma, cuor contento non ha. Anyone who says ma is probably downhearted. These 3 letters should be incorporated into the Italian Constitution, Article 140. Ma. O, depending on how it is uttered, o can express various emotions. Sorrow, pain, indignation, boredom, astonishment, pleasure, and desire. Thus speaks the Treccani dictionary. It's a matter of tonality, then. In that field, of course, the Chinese have no need to take lessons from us. Mandarin has 4 or 5 tones, Cantonese between 6 and 10. It's harder to learn the array of gestures that accompany these Italian expressions. Certain movements of the head, certain contortions of the fingers, certain jerks of the forearm are the products of history, wits, and exercises of concision. Still, in the Italian studies departments of Beijing, Guangzhou, and Hong Kong, we certainly worked on it. Just ask the people there what the post-COVID world will look like. They will reply, bo, while throwing both arms wide, just like real Italians.
Yes, Eduardo and Brian, it was fantastic. Most of them were girls, Chinese, because in languages is like 4 out of 5 are girl students, and you have like 300 people, like 200 and whatever girls, and in Beijing, and I would instruct them. Okay, now 1, 2, 3, all together now is ma. Oh, 1, 2, 3. And they were lovely. I mean, so long ago before COVID.
It's an amazing country. I had the privilege of working there for several months in 2011, teaching as well, and I fell in love with it. Beppe, you write about the secret to Italian food, and you say that there are the 5 Fs: family, feuds, fantasy, feelings, and fashion. Can you elaborate briefly?
Wow. Okay. One by one, I'll be brief. So the 5 F words, but different 5 F words, just to be clear. So one by one, to explain why Italian food is been so successful, not only in Italy, but all over the world. It's been exported everywhere, imitated, copied, replicated, sometimes in a sort of clumsy way, but still. Start with, give me the 5, the F words. Those.
Sure. The first one was family.
Family, because Italian food is not a top-down experiment like the French, who learned the best cooking in the king's court or the queens or whatever. Italy, the Italian cooking is bottom up. It is actually Italian families and Italians that moved to America, for instance, or Germany, Australia, but take the United States. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, working in steel factory, or Queens, actually, everywhere. Italians, there were a group of Italian, like 29 families, and went to work in different fields, and one opened a little trattoria to cater for the others, because cooking is something that especially women can do very well now, even including Stanley Tucci. Men can do it as well, but it was traditionally a women. And so what happened? The Jewish immigrants, the Irish, the Polish say, you know what? Have you heard about that Italian little place? Food is great, and it's cheap, and they're nice, and the food is so good. And that's how Italian success in the world started. Very basically because a family decided, instead of working in a steel factory or in a shop, to open a small trattoria. I'll be shorter now. What is the second F?
Feuds?
Rivalry. I mean, in Italy, everyone is convinced, every town, every village, that is better at cooking than the next village. So you have huge competition, and competition is good for everything in life. And so you have in Emilia-Romagna, every single place, they're convinced they produce the best tortellino in the world. If you want to create havoc, go to Modena and say that the best tortellino you had in Bologna, and the other way around, and then good luck.
Oh, God. The third one is fantasy.
Well, fantasy, because Italians, one thing we do not lack is fantasy, and you need fantasy with food. In fact, the Chinese have many more recipes than we are, and probably they've invented spaghetti, to be honest. We're all convinced. But Italian invented sort of the concept of al dente, sort of undercooking slightly. The world likes to chew. Okay, and that's a great. And they realize that the difference between Italian spaghetti and Chinese ones is simply that we have the al dente concept, and there is a lot of invention in Italian cooking that really made the difference. I just mentioned one. Third F or fourth F?
Fourth, feelings.
Feelings. Well, we love food. We love talking about food. At the end of lunch, we start talking about what we're going to have for dinner. I mean, it's like when Italians talk about food, everywhere, all walks of life, old, young, men, women, whatever gender, whatever, we all love food and love talking, and there is a genuine competence there. Same with wine. When Italians start talking about a certain olive oil, isn't that not posing? I have to say that around the world, especially in good restaurants, I've seen people pretending they know about wine, pretending they know about olive oil. In Italy, people are expert. You have 60 million experts, and they argue passionately among each other, with restaurateurs, with shopkeepers. It's like you wouldn't believe that these people are making it up. No.
And then finally, fashion.
Fashion, because of course, Italian food has become fashionable around the world for one simple reason. It's simple, you can digest it well, it's not too expensive. And if you go around the world, I traveled the world, and in every big hotel, large hotel in Africa, Asia, even United States, South America, the big international hotel, there are two restaurants. One is French, it's called Chateau Latour. It's expensive, it's really classy. And then you have La Torre di Pisa or Il Lago di Como or the Colosseum, which is noisy, less expensive, and crowded. The other tend to be empty.
Thank you for that. I'd like to tell our viewers that if you have questions for Beppe or Eduardo, please start sending them in. We'll take them shortly. I have a few more questions of my own before we get to those. Chapter 35, as we wait for questions to come in, Chapter 35 is titled, Because We Know How to Think with Our Hands and Work with Our Thoughts. Please talk to us about Italian craftsmanship and labor, Beppe.
It's it's a fact that in Italy there are excellent plumber, carpenters, tiles, people who work with tile. They don't, less so, I have to say, that we have to be very careful. But we have immigrants who are learning the trade very well, and immigrants from Africa and elsewhere in Eastern Europe, and they are becoming as good because they have a maestro. And art, you need a maestro to teach you and show you how things are done. And whenever you have the experience of like restructuring, Eduardo, you said restructuring, ristrutturare, refurbishing.
Refurbishing, yeah.
Refurbishing a flat or a house in Italy. And many Americans have experienced that in Tuscany or elsewhere. And you work with Italian plumber or carpenter, a sort of a builder, you immediately realize you're dealing with a professional. And they love to argue and to explain what they're doing, and there is an admiration, even too much. Sometimes it's verged to the sort of inferiority complex. You find this American lady, posh lady from Manhattan, going to Italy and being ordered around by young plumber. Of course, if he looks like George Clooney, has even more clout. But apart from that, it's the relation is bizarre. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome. They just do whatever they're told because it's so unusual for people in another country dealing with people that do so well those jobs that in other country are seen as a sort of okay, I have. Not the first choice. For many people, doing just that in Italy is their first choice.
Got it. That's an interesting observation. We have a question. We have a question and a comment so far. So, can you talk about similarities and differences between Northern Italy and Sicily? And I know that in chapter 22, the title is Because Our North and South Fight Like an Old Married Couple. And you go into explaining the schism between Northern Italians and Southern Italians. Can you say a little bit about it here?
It's so difficult that to answer this question that I'll make it really simple. Southern Italy is Northern Italy times 2.
Oh, interesting.
Everything you know or you read or you think about Northern Italy or in the South is times 2. Are we intuitive? Yes, we are. In Sicily, they are very intuitive. We tend to be a little undisciplined. Yes, maybe in the South they tend to be even more, and so on and so forth. Everything you read in my book just makes it times 2. It's more passionate, more intense, more unpredictable, more. But people say, how can you say Italian lessons when you have Sicily and you have South Tyrol, which is almost has been Austrian for a long time, or you have Piedmont, which is somehow French in the style and many other things. And the answer is easy. You have to look for common denominators, and there are. But people don't want to. Italians often don't want to look for those. For foreigners, it's much easier. I had Chinese people. I have a couple of Chinese friends. They came to Italy. My American friend, they can immediately spot what is common in the same thing. There is a list. I don't know now. It will be too difficult to find it in the book. And I try to explain. I love Eduardo to read it. What number is this North and South? I'm supposed to know because I wrote the book, but it's
22.
Late in the evening. And
it's number 22, Beppe.
Okay, number 22. Okay.
Page 78.
And a second.
I
just want to make sure we aren't going to run out of time. But
it's a short one. A short one.
Okay, hang on. I'm almost there. 22, because our North and South fight like an old married couple.
Okay. If you go like page 80, is outside Italy from time to time I've been asked.
Yeah.
Is a paragraph. Okay, just that paragraph.
Sure.
Too bad for you. And that's the answer to your question. But I'm sure Eduardo will be more convincing.
Outside Italy, from time to time, I've been accused of trying to describe my compatriots without making proper distinctions between North and South. How can you call a book La Bella Figura a field guide to the Italian mind? Which Italy? Which Italians? The Lombards or the Sicilians? The Turinese or the Neapolitans? I've always replied, there are shared traits. You just have to look for them. We are a nation held together by television memories and angles of light, large palazzi and small streets, dark paintings by luminous artists, naive songs, sun on the beach and soccer on television, wine and oil, pasta and cappuccino, warm welcomes and cold mountain waters. If you can't see that, then too bad for you.
Yeah, it's very poignant. Thank you, Eduardo, for that. And I think that does succinctly answer that question in so many ways, while inviting a lot of new ones. There's an interesting statement or comment from one of our viewers. I think there's a difference between loving the country in the sense of it being a nation state versus loving the people on the land, though especially in regards to a settler colonial state like the United States. And of course, this statement alone can lead to a separate book, a whole new book. And just very quickly, this is another question or comment. This is the 50th anniversary of Coppola's classic, The Godfather. What are your thoughts on this film?
My wife loves that film. I have to say that is not one of my favorite, but I can see very well why it's so attractive, and the fact that so many Italians find it so precise. And I know that the mafia didn't like the film in the beginning because they thought he was too careful and too too precise in describing sort of family mechanism, and it's a great compliment. Probably it's in fact, I'm going to watch it now again. I haven't watched it for many years.
Celebrate the 50th anniversary. Finally, are there any questions? We have some time still, but are there any questions that Eduardo, you wanted to ask Beppe, or Beppe that you wanted to ask Eduardo?
The one thing I wanted to say, which I found so incisive and charming about the book, is that Italy is this inherent jumble of contradictions, which is what has always been so fascinating. So it's elegant and it's vulgar. It's refined and it's coarse. It's all of these things at once, and that is brought out beautifully in the book. At the top of the show, Beppe, you said, I've written my one book and now my second book, and there was the gap of 15 years between them. And you said, I'm not going to write a third. But my question to you is, surely there was a big difference in those 15 years that inspired you to write the second volume. Something happened in those 15 years. And as the pace of change is so fast now, it might be possible that in 10 or 15 years, the Italy that you're describing in Italian Lessons will be very changed. So maybe there will be a third book. So do you see the pace of change as happening quickly in Italy?
Yes, I do. And I think it's happening everywhere. Like, if you think that book came out in 2006, think what happened in our countries. I mean, you belong to two countries. Actually, we all, in one way, you more than me, Brian and Eduardo, but even me, because I travel in. The first time I traveled in the United States I was driving a motorhome from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, to Santa Barbara and back. And I was age 20, 6 of us, age 20. And when the motorhome, we drove the motorhome back to this man who rented it to us in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, he almost cried because he believed he would never see his motorhome again. He said, those 20 years old Italians, never. In fact, we drove back. So 45 years in America is a long time. And so I think what I say can be said about America, your country, or Italy, our country in a way, and even Britain or France or Europe and elsewhere. so much has happened. Okay, briefly, 2008, Lehman Brothers, financial crisis, and we know what it was. Then we had all. The recession that came after that, and it was tough for in Europe. And then we had international terrorism. We tend to forget about it, but 9/11 happened in 2001, of course. But I mean, there've been scars in Europe, in London, in Paris, in Nice, not in Italy, thanks God, but everywhere, in Madrid. So there was a big shock. In Italy, we had Berlusconi. Berlusconi was like, I won't go into, I wrote a book about Berlusconi out in the States, by the way. I wrote a book 10 years ago. Berlusconi is not Trump, although their passion for young women and their hair is similar, but most things are not. But in some way, he predicted that someone like Trump could come over. And in Italy, it was a real shock. People had to adjust. There'd been like a culture clash and a faith, a war almost, a political war. It was not like, it was like a matter of faith against Berlusconi or for Berlusconi in Italy. And then you had, as I said, international terror. And then in 2020, you had 2 years of pandemic. And now we have a war. I mean, these things do change deeply a society.
Yes.
Probably each of them is enough.
Right.
So I expect this war, I know you're talking about it, it's everywhere in your newspaper and television, but for us, it's so close.
Oh, yes, you're back to
it's the impact is different, believe me, and I know we won't come out of these experience the same as we were before. So yes, I think someone, probably not me, will write another book, because 15 years is really a long time. I mean, we didn't mention the huge impact of these and social media, and the fact that this camera work both way, and Italians were already sometime a bit sort of how do you say, prone to show off. With these, Italy is a country devised for Instagram. It's the Italian character, the Italian beauty, the backgrounds, whatever. Instagram was invented. Italy was invented for Instagram, and
it's very funny.
And so Italians love to show off in many ways, as I explained. So all the social media, and it was a huge thing everywhere. It affected America in a different way, but Italy. So yes, absolutely. It'll be a very different book.
Thank you for that question, Eduardo, and thank you for that answer, Beppe. I want to let our viewers know as well, if you want to learn more about Beppe and his work, you can visit his website at beppeseverini.com. It's BEPPESEVERGNINI.com. Let me try this one more time. Corriere della Sera.
Well done.
Okay. I get to keep my card. All right, wonderful. I need Italian lessons, honestly.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you both so much. It's been a really sort of enchanting, charming experience speaking with you both and hearing Eduardo read from your beautiful book, Beppe. And thank you all for joining us. Have a good night.
If I may, that's very. I have an Italian ending. Italian, all love to invite everyone. But both of you, if you, Eduardo, you're coming through Italy to Northern Italy, I have a lovely place in the countryside. Come and see me. This book, I really want to end on this note. This book is in memory of Charlie Conrad. Charlie Conrad has been a fantastic editor in New York, one of the best editors, beloved in the publishing world. He discovered me. He discovered lots of important writers. and he lived in New Jersey. Past, he's no longer with us. And Charlie, came to see me when he was traveling to Italy when La Bella Figura was published, and he really loved Italy, and he had no Italian connection whatsoever. But there are people in the American book world that know and love Italy, and you're all welcome here.
Thank you,
Right.
Ben. Thank you so much, and thank you all of you for joining us this evening. Have a good week.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Grazie,